Welcome back. The National Economic Development and Labour Council, Nedlac, says a 0.5% tax on South Africa's wealthiest could generate the same revenue as the proposed VAT hike without deepening the burden on the poor. The VAT increase announced by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana takes effect on the 1st of May. Nedlac constituency head Thulani Chifuta says their alternative proposal is a more equitable way to raise funds.
You are therefore exacerbating poverty and inequality, a cost we cannot afford as a South African society. Secondly, when you go ahead with that VAT increment, we must appreciate that it is not a given that we may generate the revenue that government so much needs from this VAT increment. We may not generate that revenue because even in the same budget, it is suggested that there will be other issues that then get immediately zero-rated, which means we are not going to generate VAT income or revenue from those items. But beyond that, due to that weak household consumption, because when you do not have that money to buy, reduced by the buying power, you buy less and less, and therefore it means that you risk not even being able to generate the very same revenue that you are saying you want to generate.
Chifuta says their stance differs from GNU parties as they fear the increase will hurt the poor without guaranteeing revenue gains.
What these political parties suggest is that hold on with the VAT increment, but go and expunge the items of social expenditure on the expenditure side of the budget. Because remember, the budget is made up of revenue on one side, expenditure on the other side, and then making up for the difference through borrowing and the debt. What they are saying is that hold on the revenue side, but go and reduce more and more items from those that you would have spent on. And what is disheartening about this whole situation is that the trade-offs on social expenditure items that affect the poorest of the poor the most, that it is those items that would go, for example, into the social relief of distress grant that we can therefore not afford. They go to affect expenditure items on education, on health, which without those social expenditure items, there are dire economic implications because education, health, and add the variable of economic growth account for human development index. And so it means that we are going to deepen the crisis, which we believe the biggest problem we're confronted with, of which this budget is a symptom of, is a growth problem.
Joining us now for more perspective on the VAT hike is Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi. Mr. Zibi, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this evening. So we are 11 days away from that VAT hike. Is it still possible that it could be scrapped in the interim?
I think not. I think what we can hope for is that it is temporary. And that is where at least our energies as Rise Mzansi are directed, because viewers must remember that retailers have to get ready to implement the increase. Every little thing that you buy at the store, from sweets all the way to, to large items, have to reflect a price that is accurate, that reflects the VAT increase. So it's not easy to just switch it on and off. And typically, there's an allowance of about 40 to 45 days from the time of announcement to the time that it comes into effect to allow retailers and other businesses to align accordingly. So I think the window for May has passed. However, the work that is being done at the moment may see an amendment to the revenue proposals soon thereafter, so that we can then get rid of both the VAT and the personal income tax increases.
So talking about the work that's currently being done, you have written to the National Treasury saying that SARS could collect 40 billion rand in additional revenue by the 31st of December. And you argue that this would be enough to offset the need for this VAT hike. And you don't believe that it's risky to base such a commitment on a possibility of a collection?
The entire budget is based on a possibility. The tax that is going to be collected this year has not yet been collected. There's only been a month and a half of collection. So the National Treasury does very reliable actuarial models that project how much tax is going to be paid. So there is a tax base in the country. A number of people they know are employed, businesses they know are in production, they understand what pay as you earn is going to be, royalties, etc., etc. There may be variances in that number. But the point is, people have to understand that we have a 2.6 trillion rand budget. The amount of money that is in dispute is 31 billion only, which is 0.05% of the budget. And we are saying that it must be possible, and we think it is possible to find an extra 31.5 billion rand to plug the hole so that we don't then need to have VAT and personal income tax increasing as we are on that path at the moment.
So, I mean, within your engagements, you're putting up that 40 billion as a possibility. What have been the engagements with National Treasury? Would that then be a possibility?
No, National Treasury right now are busy evaluating all the proposals that they've been given. They have an obligation in terms of our law to consider all of those proposals and give detailed answers in terms of what is implementable and what is not. So, it's not a thumbs up in a meeting where we make a proposal and they say, oh yeah, it can be done. So they have to go, because it's important that National Treasury places before Parliament information that is reliable. And political parties have made proposals, COSATU has made proposals, Nedlac has made proposals, and so on. They must evaluate all of those, and that's what they're busy doing. But we also cannot wait forever. So this has to be resolved in the next week or two, so that when Parliament resumes in early May, it can deal with this matter once and for all.
And talking about that resolution, should then this impasse, the resolution is not reached by the state that you make mention of? I mean, you also have the Division of Revenue Bill as well as the Appropriation Bill that also need to be passed by the 6th of May and the 10th of June, respectively. What would then be the direct impact, if any, on service delivery when these bills are not passed on time? Is there an impact in terms of this budget and what we'll see at local government level?
Thank you so much for that question, because even with the delay of the budget in February, there was an impact. So budgets, the minister's announcement is used by investors and many others to make assessment of the reliability of our National Treasury as a borrower. And since July 19th, what is called the yield curve, that is the interest South Africa pays on its national debt, has increased. So the longer this continues, that 8.5 billion rand a week that the minister had projected we will pay this year in paying interest on debt could end up becoming 9 billion rand, 10 billion rand, which in any event affects the shape of the budget that we have. So it is important that all of us try and stick to the timetable. And our hope as Rise Mzansi is that in the same week, we will be able to deal with both the Division of Revenue Bill as well as any amendments to the fiscal framework through revised revenue projections by the National Treasury, so that we can complete this initial process and move to departmental budgets. If we can't pass a budget, there will be very dire consequences in terms of how much money is available and whether we can have service delivery at all. That's the outcome. And it's important that we work as fast as we can.
All right, Mr. Zibi, thank you so much for your time. Of course, South Africans will be watching and waiting with bated breath for those resolutions to come, especially within the next coming week. Thank you for your time.